So what is a shadow? Let's talk about that. I talk a lot about shadow work in my coaching and in my content creation. And shadow really is, again, it's the split aspects of ourselves that we have learned to reject about ourselves. I call these shadows because they kind of lurk, and they try and dampen your light, your essence, the beauty of who you are, by you thinking that there's something wrong with you, or that you're not worthy, or you're not acceptable, or not lovable. Whatever these things are, whatever your story is that you've told yourself, they stem from our shadows. And until we can learn to befriend our shadows, we can't align, and we can't become authentic if we're not aligned. So our shadows are really the biggest reason why we become unaligned, right? We have all the things that we're ashamed of about ourselves trapped away here in our closet, and then we have this expression of who we are and who we're meant to be in this world. And until we can kind of come together as one and start to accept and love all aspects of ourselves, it's going to be very, very challenging for us to become authentic and be able to live from the most authentic expression of who we are. So that's what a shadow is. And so why is it important to befriend our shadows when embodying our truth? If we're always identifying with the things we don't like about ourselves, and they're leading the way, right? So let's think about it like this. If we have an opportunity that presents itself and we're like, should I do this or should I not? Oftentimes when we're over-identified with our shadows, we're over-identified with fear. And we're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to ask this person out. I'm not going to do this speaking engagement because of X, Y, and Z. That's when the shadows start to come up. That's the voices inside of ourselves that tell us we're not good enough. We shouldn't do it because we're going to fail. All that sort of stuff. It stems from our shadow selves, okay? So when we start to understand the shadow self, through self-awareness, we can start to understand where we need to start sending allowance and acceptance and love and all of these things that we want to start to practice, okay? So that's why it's really important to have the self-awareness on this journey, so we can know where we need to, what we need to befriend, okay? So the thing about self-acceptance is, oftentimes people think self-acceptance is thinking positive thoughts about ourselves, and that's an aspect of it, okay? But I want to kind of blow your mind for a second here, okay? So the thoughts that we think about ourselves are not actually us, okay? Every single thought that we have originates in the past or the future, okay? I ask you this, can you think of one thought that you have that does not originate itself in the past or the future? The answer is no, because we can't, right? If we're in the present moment, we're not having thought. No thought is present moment. Past, future is where thought originates, right? So when we're having a thought, we're thinking about something that happened in the past, or we're thinking about something that happened in the future, right? And as soon as we're in the present moment and we start to think about being in the present moment, we're no longer in the present moment, we're in the past memory of being in the present moment, right? It's kind of like a little like nuance of consciousness and how it works. And I want to tie this into self-acceptance, because this is an important aspect of self-acceptance. When we're using our mind to practice self-acceptance, it's almost kind of like we're chasing self-acceptance, because it's past or future. So we have to dig back into the past, or we have to go into the future to embrace who we are. True embracement of who we are is going to be embracing the energy of who we are, which happens in the present moment, which is the isness of us, is in the present moment. So the mistake people make when trying to cultivate self-acceptance is they think that they have to keep thinking these repetitive thoughts. The thing about that is, what it does is it keeps us stuck in having to work for accepting ourselves and having to constantly remind ourselves that we're acceptable, right? That's the difference between thinking self-acceptance and feeling self-acceptance. When we feel self-acceptance, we're tuning into the energy of who we are, and we're feeling the depth of who we are. Okay, so again, true self-acceptance has to occur in the present moment when we take the journey, we surrender our head to our heart, and we take that journey and we become accepting of the essence of who we are. Nothing and nobody can interrupt that. No unpleasant experience, no disrespectful comment, nothing can interrupt that, because we're in a vibration and in an alignment of who we are, because we're in the actual energy, the essence energy of who we are. So I want to share a quick quote from my book about this that I wrote that will kind of shine some light on this. So, self-acceptance. A lack of self-acceptance is no different than the resistance I spoke of previously. You can tell yourself you love yourself and accept yourself all you want, but until you allow yourself to feel your true nature in the present moment, you're not allowing the space for self-love and acceptance to embody. If we accept ourselves in thought, it remains in thought, and we keep having to tell ourselves or think thoughts of self-acceptance. If we allow the space to feel this state, we remember it by returning to it as it is already imprinted on every cell of our being. Self-acceptance is less about accepting the things you don't like about yourself and more about accepting the resistance you have to what is by wishing it were different. As long as you keep wishing to be different, you will stay stuck in a cycle of low self-worth by rejecting things you don't want to accept. You don't have to suddenly love those things, as they may be too far of a jump for you. We must first accept that there is resistance to who we are as we are. Otherwise, we spend our time in the mind where things cannot be accepted. Full presence means full acceptance. The more time you spend in presence, the less time you can spend worrying about the things you don't love about yourself. The human mind has the unhelpful habit of thinking that the more it ruminates about something, the closer it will come to a solution on how to fix it. You cannot fix yourself because there is nothing to be fixed, only things to be accepted, and then you can feel the wholeness to which you are. So I just want to repeat this. If we allow the space to feel this state, we remember it by returning to it as it is already imprinted on every cell of our being. This is the act of remembrance, which is going to be a lesson later in this course. The act of remembrance is returning to who you are, the energy of who you are. And our ego has been created to do the opposite of that. The ego keeps us in mind identification and identifying with things outside of ourselves, right? That's called form consciousness. We form these things in our outer world that we identify with as who we are. And then when things don't work out in our form consciousness, we internalize those as things that are unacceptable about ourselves. Space consciousness, on the other hand, is basically when we tune into us, into our inner presence, to the energy of who we are. This is the space where we need to develop and cultivate self-acceptance, because that is the undisturbed self-acceptance and self-love that we have for ourselves. And really, at the end of the day, it actually moves from self-acceptance, because self-acceptance is kind of like, okay, I don't like this about myself, but I'm going to accept that it's there, and I'm just going to allow it to be there, right? Which is great. That's step one in self-acceptance. But we want to become more closer to self-love and self-ownership and being like proud of who we are, all of who we are, right? And being able to say, like, this is me. This is who I am, and I'm proud to be this person, my shortcomings and all, right? That's kind of the goal where I think we all want to get to, is being able to embrace all aspects of ourselves. But I'm telling you, we can't embrace all that we are with our mind. Our mind will not allow that, because our mind will always see things as desirable and undesirable, as preferable, not preferable, as light and shadow, right? It always is about comparing and contrasting, whereas the heart does not have that experience. Our heart just embraces us, and it just opens up, and it loves us for who we are. So present moment awareness is going to be key in befriending the shadow, because we need to make sure that we're staying centered in who we are, in our heart, in the energy of who we are. And that's basically the reason why I wrote the book, Be the Space, is because it's a guide to teach you how to move from your head into your heart so you can cultivate these things. Self-love, self-acceptance, authenticity, all of these things happen in the present moment. They do not happen in mind identification, because the mind always has a story of why we're not good enough, or it's diluting us in our reality and making us think that we're better than other people, and that's how we're good enough, right? It's ego. So we need to learn to move away from that, and we'll liberate ourselves from the pain and suffering that our mind is causing us. So skill to practice. So I want you, this is going to be a little bit tough for some people, and that's okay, but because this work isn't all about rainbows and butterflies. It's going to be there's going to be some darkness that we have to trudge through, and that's okay, right? Because when we approach our darkness with allowance, we allow it to be and we release it. So skill to practice is going to be write down all the things you don't like about yourself and start to find the positives about these things. Okay. Understand that you are more than your mind and you are more than your body, because all the things on the list, I guarantee you, are going to come around body image, what I don't like about my body, or what I don't like about who I am as a person, which is going to be identified with mind. So I don't like that I'm controlling. I don't like that I'm a perfectionist. I don't like that I criticize people. Whatever it is, it's all originating in the mind, and it will all originate in the mind's view of your body. So it's the mind, essentially, at the end of the day. So we don't want to reject the mind and say the mind is bad, but we do want to start to liberate ourselves from having to only get our truth from the thoughts we think about ourselves. It's more about the states that we feel about ourselves that are going to be more of who we are, okay? So write down those things, sit with yourself, breathe into it, and just start to explore, like, why is it that I don't like this about myself, and just start to play with it. It's malleable, right? These things are malleable. We can move them, we can shape them, we can reconstruct how we interact with the things we don't like about ourselves, and this is a beautiful way to do it. Affirmation is going to be, I accept blank as a part of who I am. Hand on heart. Breathe. I accept blank as a part of who I am. Okay, so whatever you come up with as in your lists, start to practice and give those things space to be, because it's been too long that they've been in the closet, they've been hidden, and if you want to start to bring them forth and be more authentic, then you're going to need to learn to send love to those things about yourself. Okay, cool. Halfway done the course almost, or we are halfway done the course, and hopefully you guys are starting to learn and start to integrate some of these things. This is such a beautiful journey, and I'm looking forward to continuing along with you guys. We have lesson 5 coming up shortly. Sending you lots of love. Have a beautiful day.